Okay, we're going to use sum and difference, double and half angle identities for cosine of alpha equals 4 over 5, where alpha lives in quadrant 1, and cosine of beta equals 5 over 13, and beta lives in quadrant, the angle beta lives in quadrant 4. So in order to do these, and this is a review for your quiz, I'm going to do the evens, and you can do the odds, because it would take too long for me to do all 10 of these. But some of the odds, you might get one of the ones with the odds. So make sure you know how to do all 10 of these. The first thing you need to do is find all the values, because you have to know them all for the to fill in the formulas. And all we're doing is plugging in formulas. So since alpha lives in quadrant 1, we're going to find sine of alpha. And you should know that's 3 over 5. And just remind yourself that this is x over r, and this is a triple. This is also x over r, and this is a triple. So for your Pythagorean triples, you know it's 3, 4, 5, and this one would be 5, 12, 13. If you don't know it, you'll have to use the the Pythagorean theorem and find them, but you should know these by now. So we know cosine of alpha equals 4 over 5. Now for the beta angle, we know that sine of beta is going to be 12 over 13. And since beta lives in quadrant 4, we know that this angle here is going to be negative. And then we already have cosine of beta equals 5 over 13. So very quickly you should write these down, because so you'll know them for all your formulas. Okay, I have all mine written down, and we are first going to find sine of alpha plus or minus beta, and we're going to do this all together to save time, is sine of alpha cosine of beta plus or minus cosine of alpha sine of beta. And you just plug it in. So sine of alpha is 3/5. Cosine of beta is 5 over 13. Plus or minus cosine of alpha is 4/5. Sine of beta is negative 12. Since it's negative, I'm going to put parentheses on this one, so it doesn't look like we're subtracting. I'll do it that way. Alright, and then you multiply across, and you get 15 over 65 plus or minus negative 48 over 65. So our sine of alpha plus beta equals 15 minus 48, which is, I believe, negative 33 over 65. And our sine of alpha minus beta equals, and that would be the minus portion, so that's going to be 2 negatives there. Okay, that equals 53 or 63? 63 over 65. Now go ahead and write these down. So we have negative 33 over 65, because you're going to need them for your tangent. 63 over 65. Alright, that's the plus. Alright, now let's do cosine of alpha plus or minus beta equals cosine of alpha cosine of beta minus plus sine of alpha sine of beta. Okay, in this case, these are opposite here. And you just plug it in. Cosine of alpha is 4/5. Cosine of beta is 5 over 13. Minus plus sine of alpha is 3/5. And sine of beta is negative 12 over 13. Again, just make sure I don't subtract. So I have 20 over 65 minus plus negative 48 over 65. So cosine of alpha plus beta, and that's where you're doing this portion. Two negatives here make a positive. That's going to be 68 over 65. And cosine of alpha minus beta equals negative 28 over 65. Again, you want to write these down for your next, so we can do tangent. Okay, and then we're going to do tangent. In this case, the way we're going to do tangent is tangent of alpha plus or minus beta equals equals sine of alpha plus or minus beta over cosine of alpha plus or minus beta. Since we've already done these, I am just going to do first the sine of alpha plus beta over cosine of alpha plus beta, and I get negative 33 over 65 over 68 over 65. These two cancel, and my final answer is negative 33 over 65. And our sine of alpha minus beta over cosine of alpha minus beta. I'm just drawing on the previous pages, and I know that's going to be 63 over 65 divided by negative 28 over 65. These two cancel, so you get negative 63 over 28. Okay, the next ones we're going to do is the double angles. So we're going to do sine of 2 beta, cosine of 2 beta, and tan of 2 beta. And remember, I told you to change this to beta here. It makes it easier. We know that our formula here is 2 sine of beta times cosine of beta. You can use one of 4 formulas here. Since I'm going to have to find them both anyway, I'm going to use cosine squared of beta minus sine squared of beta. And for tan, I'm just going to divide what I get here for sine of 2 beta over cosine of 2 beta. So this, I'll just draw from these two. Alright, so sine of 2 beta, it's 2 sine of beta. So sine of beta was negative 12 over 13. And cosine of beta was 5 over 13. So this is 2 times negative 60 over 169, which equals negative 120 over 169. And for cosine of 2 beta, I'm going to use this formula. So that's going to be, I'm just picking these values here, 5 over 13 squared minus negative 12 over 13 squared. And that equals 25 over 169 minus 144 over 169. And you need to subtract 144 from 25. And I'm trying to do it in my head, and I get negative 119 over 169. Now for tangent, I'm just going to divide these two here. This one with this one. So I get negative 120 over 169 divided by negative 119 over 169. These two cancel. Two negatives make a positive. So I get 120 over 119. Okay, so this is the final answer here. And you have your three answers. I saved the half angles for last. We have to find a sine of beta over 2. Let me see on my paper. What do we have to find? We have to find sine of beta over 2 first. And recall that beta lives in between negative pi over 2 and 0. But I need to know where beta over 2 lives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my domain and divide everything by 2. When I do that, I get negative pi over 4 is less than beta over 2, which is less than 0. So where does beta over 2 live? Well, this is still in quadrant 4, so beta over 2 belongs to quadrant 4. Since it belongs to quadrant 4, and my sign is negative in quadrant 4, I'm going to use this formula, negative 1 minus cosine of beta over 2. The cosine of beta is 4/5, so I get negative 1 minus 4/5 over 2, which equals square root, don't forget your negative, 5/5 minus 4/5 over 2, which equals square root of 1 over 10. Recall that you can multiply these two, and we get, don't forget your negative. That leaves us with negative 1 over root 10, which equals negative root 10 over 10 after you rationalize it. Okay, now we're going to do cosine of beta over 2, which our formula is plus and minus square root 1 plus cosine of beta. Is it beta or alpha we're supposed to do? This is supposed to be alpha, so let me erase this. Alpha, alpha, so that's alpha, alpha over 2. Now, my alpha lives in quadrant, which one is this? Okay, quadrant 1, and so it's going to continue to live in quadrant 1 because when you divide everything by 2 here, whoops, sorry about that, divide everything by 2, you get 0 is less than alpha over 2 and it's less than pi over 4. So it lives in a very small area because we're taking half the angle. And you just plug it in. Since it is in the quadrant 1, cosine's positive, we can get rid of this negative and this is going to be positive. So alpha, cosine of alpha is 4/5. So that's going to be 1. And my 1, I'm going to go ahead and write that as 5/5 plus 4/5 over 2, which equals the square root of 9 over 10, which equals 3 over root 10. Rationalize it and you get 3 root 10 over 10. Okay? Now, the last one is tan of alpha over 2. In this case, I'm going to use this formula, and the one I want you all to use. Well, you can use this one, or you can use this one. Remember, through our identities, these are equivalent. The reason I like to use this one is because it keeps, for me, it's easier to keep my fractions on the top here versus the denominator. So I have 1, let's sine of alpha here, 1 minus 4/5 over 3/5, which equals 5/5 minus 4/5 over 3/5. The 5's cancel, so that equals 1/3. And you're done. 15 minutes.